Wary observations, righteous discussions unite people. It's the Word Up Podcast, and I am your host, OMNI, ETC, Omni, etc. Omni. Listen, folks, and I say folks, because if you are a fan, a follower of mine, or I don't like the term follower because it says how do I want to put it? Is giving. I don't like saying is giving. It comes off as idolatry, and I don't want to be idolized because that takes away from the source, my source. You know what I'm saying? The one above all, the big God. But, you know, we're back after so long. I had a lot of stuff to do, as always. So finding time to really flesh out concepts and give them to you all in a digestible fashion, it takes time. I don't talk, as you notice, I don't talk about every little thing. Right now, Lizzo's having a situation. Keke Palmer had her moment. And Jess Hilarious got into it with the Transformer. You know what I'm saying? And all of that doesn't really amount to the value that I want this channel to bring to you all. I really want to talk about things that people aren't really paying attention to, and I believe that we all should be. Hold on, let me brighten this up a little bit. There we go. So that's really the purpose, you know, as the acronym has it. Wary observations, righteous discussions unite people. I'm your host, Omni, etc. OMNI, Omni. And this is the Word Up Podcast. Thank you, whoever tunes in, whoever watches. The channel has been growing. So thank you all for your subscriptions. Thank you for your patronage. Thank you for tuning in. And I am here and there trying to make more and more improvements as we grow on these things. Be sure of that if you are sure of nothing else. But with that said, let's get into it. Hit the subscribe, the notification bell, the like really helps out the channel, the YouTube algorithm, and it's essentially free to do all of these things. Listen, today I want to talk about, and we're going to review this incredible, very short, because even though the video is, say, 34 minutes in total, this particular interview is about 15 or so minutes. But I really want to break down this interview between Tucker Carlson and Ice Cube, who's been all but shunned in the black community. Ice Cube has been all but shunned in the black community, and I don't understand why. I don't see a reasonable, a real reason, a true reason for this man to have been shunned in the black community, just because he was willing to talk with individuals that most of you all seem to be afraid of. You revere something. When you don't want to talk to somebody, when you don't want to have a conversation with people, when it gets to the point where you're afraid to have a conversation because of how it might look or how it might come off or X, Y, Z, and third. I mean, we all fell for it. Steve Harvey wanted to talk to Donald Trump. All of these black people wanted to talk to Donald Trump in the 2020 election, well, before the 2020 election. And they got him with a photo, like there were people outside taking pictures with Donald Trump. And most of Black America were like, oh my God, it's so horrible that you're taking a picture with Donald Trump. It's a picture. A picture, and let me be very clear, a picture with somebody or a video with somebody does not confirm nor deny nor condemn nor affirm whether or not somebody is truly rocking with somebody. The number one way to know that somebody is rocking with somebody is through transactional means. And when I say transactional means, I say that to say your vote in the polls is nowhere near as important as your voting every day with your dollars. When you vote with your dollars, you are ensuring business is done. You're ensuring bills are paid. You're ensuring that those businesses and those entities can make it another day or another month or another year when you patronize their business. As far as I know, Ice Cube has not given any of these people any type of money. But he is willing to go on the platforms that most of you all are afraid to go on. Let's continue. All right. So let's get into this video. It was very insightful for me. Of course, you're going to have to say this. It's going to be fair use. Fair use, fair use, fair use. I got to say that multiple times. Fair use in this video. Let's get into it. So here we have Tucker Carlson and Ice Cube. I'm going to play the video here in a second. I'm going to lighten up the opacity on my little filter here. This is my filter that I use to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, I don't run into any copyright issues, because I don't really like having to deal with those in the first place. That's just me. I don't like having to deal with it. I don't like having to talk about it on the back end and plead my case and all of this. So I'm going to lighten this up so we can get more of their features and you can see more of what they're saying. This is a great interview for me, but let's see what's going on here.
So why would you be doing this of all interviews? I mean, you could do an interview with anyone. You're doing an interview with me. Obviously, you're going to take abuse for doing that. Like, why would you do that?
Because I think it's silly not to talk to people. I think whether we agree or not,
right?
That has nothing to do with it. You know, it's like, this is what it's all about. Let's talk about it. Let's debate. And you know, I've been shut out.
Wait, that sounds like right-wing extremism and whataboutism.
But I've been shut out. You know, some platforms will not have me on.
Why?
They don't like that I'm, you know.
And this is exactly what I've been saying. This is exactly what I've been saying as far as Ice Cube is concerned. He seemed to actually have a plan and a proposal for Black America that he wanted both sides of the fence. You know, the Democratic Party, when it was Joe Biden, and he wanted Donald Trump's team to look at it. And, you know what I'm saying, Donald Trump was the only one that embraced him with open arms. So he was shunned from everybody else, and Joe Biden wouldn't even consider his proposal. That was very telling to me, and that was my turning point into seeing the game for exactly what it is. But let's continue here.
I'm an independent thinker. I'm not part of the herd. I'm not part of the go along to get along gang, so to speak. So, you know, I'm an outsider, and so, you know, I'm not part of the club. So I have to go places for one, that I'm welcome. Yeah. And where I can voice my opinion without somebody, you know, saying I'm a bad person and that they never want to have me on their platform again.
What platforms have banned you?
I've been, you know, I tried to go on The View. They didn't have me on The View.
Why?
Well, a few of the guests just really didn't like where I was coming from. So, or a few of the hosts, I mean. So that's what I was told by the producers. You know, I don't know if the producers was just copping out and using some of the hosts to not have me come on and explain myself, but
You'd be a good booking for them.
I've been on there before.
Yeah.
You know, it's just when I've became an independent thinker, when I've, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't follow their brand of politics, I guess.
Okay, so we're gonna pause here. I'm gonna go back to the main screen real quick. But this is exactly what I was talking about. Okay, and I'm just doing this to break up the show a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But this is exactly what I'm talking about. He's talking about how you was shunned from The View. And it's surprising with Whoopi on there, but this is the thing about media and who's really in control, because a while ago, I did a I did an episode on Whoopi Goldberg, and it was called Making Whoopi. I don't know if it was in this iteration of it or if it was on my page on Facebook, so I'm gonna have to look that up. But it was interesting to me how I was breaking down the dichotomy and the power structure and how power actually works. Because when we were marching in the streets for Breonna Taylor here in Louisville, Kentucky, everybody was talking about, oh, how powerful it is to protest and the power of protest. First of all, here in Kentucky, you need a permit to protest. So I need your permission to say fuck you, which is ridiculous. There's a thing as lawful and unlawful protesting. There's a concept of lawful and unlawful protesting. So I need your permission in order to say fuck you. No, it's just fuck you off rip. Now, in the Whoopi Goldberg situation, and this ties into what he's saying about The View, Whoopi Goldberg said something that a certain community didn't like. I'm gonna call them the little hat people. The little hat community didn't like what Whoopi Goldberg said. And so they immediately removed her and then told her to apologize so she could have her job back. Not a single march, nobody died in the streets, nobody had to bomb 100 businesses, there were no riots. It was just simple, quick, and effective. Listen, you want your job? You're gonna have to apologize. You don't want your job? And that's the position that they have us in. So don't be fooled. Do not for a second be fooled and think that, you know what I'm saying, a lot of the activities you partake in is true power. Okay? A lot of this stuff is just bells and whistles to make you feel good. But what Ice Cube is talking about is how certain individuals, and I don't even know if Whoopi Goldberg had an opinion, but I bet she remained tight-lipped if the majority in that room was like, yo, we're not gonna have Ice Cube on. I don't think she was raising hell behind the scenes, because she said the smallest little inconvenience on camera and they pulled the plug on her. And then she was made to apologize 2 days later in order to maintain her position. Doesn't really sound like a position of power to me. But anyway, let's go back to YouTube. Let's go back to YouTube. All right.
But if you can't think for yourself, then you're not really free, are you?
No, you're not. You're not. But I've been excluded. I've been excluded on Oprah, you know.
On Oprah?
On Oprah, yeah, I've been excluded. Yeah, man.
I would think you'd be the person Oprah would want to promote. I mean, you grew up in South Central, you were successful at a young age. you have dignity, you say what you think. Like, I thought that was the goal.
Me too. You know, I don't know what it is, but, you know, several of my, you know, I had a movie called Barbershop, you know,
I remember.
that I wasn't invited to participate with the cast. I produced a show called Black White, and it was a very controversial show.
Interesting. I don't know. Are they talking about the cast of Barbershop being on the Oprah show? I'm gonna have to look that up. However, Oprah has made it known that she doesn't care for gangster rap. But to be fair, I believe that she should have Ice Cube on now. Because Ice Cube, for those that don't know and may just now be aware, and I'm kind of honored that, you know what I'm saying, if you don't know, I'm making you aware. Ice Cube used to be a part of he got his start, rather, in a group called NWA, aka Niggas with Attitude. It was him, Eazy-E, Dr. Dre. Hold on. I'm trying to think, because when it comes to West Coast rap, I always mix up people in groups, because one group, usually how it works in hip hop is one group starts up, they break up, and then they click up with the individuals from one group click up with another group and start another thing. So I'm trying not to throw like Snoop Dogg and Corrupt in the group. I'm gonna have to think of the other group members of NWA a little bit later, but I just can't bring them to mind right now. So he was in a group called NWA, aka Niggas with Attitude. Him, Eazy-E, Dr. Dre is what I can call off the top of the head. I know there's more. But back then, Oprah was anti-gangster rap. And the reason why I say Oprah should sit down with Ice Cube now is because she interviewed 50 Cent, which, if you grew up in the era, 50 Cent was the epitome, the exemplar of gangster rap, without question. So I think it's long overdue that Ice Cube gets to sit down with Oprah, as well as Snoop Dogg. Now that I think about it, should get down. I mean, Martha Stewart co-signed Snoop Dogg. Come on, Oprah. Come on, Oprah. All right, let's continue though.
And once again, they had the whole cast on, but I wasn't invited, and so I don't know. I don't know what that's
on Oprah's show.
Yeah, so I don't know what that's.
But Oprah's obviously a saintly, godlike figure who's revered by all decent people. Why would she exclude you?
I really don't know. You know, that's something that I would love to find out. But I can't tell you, you know, if there's a single thing that I've done or said to her.
Have you noticed that it is more controversial to criticize Oprah than to burn the American flag?
Really?
Seems that way.
Is that a fact?
I've never heard anybody criticize Oprah.
You know what? That is very true. That is very true. Huh. Who has openly criticized Oprah? Who's open? I'm seriously trying to think right now if I can think of a single person that has ever criticized Oprah. I can't. I can't think of one person off the top of my head that has ever criticized Oprah. Criticizing Oprah is essentially like criticizing Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Carrie Hilson. And Khalees. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna end up doing you're gonna end up doing parodies of the one hit that you have for Uber Eats. Like, I think people just knew at a certain point where you know, Oprah had a certain amount of notoriety about her that you don't cross Oprah. you don't speak negatively of Oprah. And that's power. That's the kind of power that I'm saying more black folks need to tap into. All right.
Do you think it's political, or do you think it's deeper than that? I mean, you're not like a right winger.
No.
No. You don't even seem that political.
No, I'm not really. I'm pretty much, just want to do right by the people, So if that comes through political means, that comes through the private sector, wherever it comes, I'm down to work with whoever's down to do something right for the people.
So I remember reading you
Word.
say something along the lines of, I didn't vote for Trump, I'm not a Trump voter. You actually attacked Trump at one point, but you were willing to meet with Trump. Do you think that crossed a line?
I think some people didn't like that, but I think it's idiotic. Enemies meet.
Right.
They talk. I'm pretty sure there's some communication between Russia and the Ukraine right now. Somebody's on the phone talking to somebody, trying to come up with a solution.
And I agree. This is the thing. This is the thing. In order to stop bloodshed, because the phrase, if you want peace, then prepare for war, is very true. It's a very true sentiment. But in most cases, we would like, especially in today's civilized society, we would like to avoid war if at all possible, because the ways in which that we have, the means in which that we have to outright slaughter massive amounts of humans is horrific. You think, this is the thing about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when we talk about slaughtering massive amounts of human beings. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was the original, you know what I'm saying? And that was right after the prototype. You know what I'm saying? Little Man and Fat Boy. Those were the OG nuclear weapons. We've gotten, the technology has progressed so much and has become so advanced. I specifically remember, because my sister was in New York when 9/11 happened. My sister was in New York when 9/11 happened. I specifically remember what happened with the whole TSA and why TSA is such a huge thing now. And, you know what I'm saying, they put you in the machine. They were and they make you take off your shoes. I don't know if they still do it. It's been a while since I've flown anywhere, but they make you take off your shoes. They made you take off your shoes because they thought, or at least the federal government, the American government at the time, knew and understood that there could be a possibility of people having nukes in their shoes. So if a nuke could be that small and get into an area, there's no telling how far technology has progressed nowadays. Because if I'm trying to, that's covert. You know what I'm saying? Hiding a bomb in your shoe, that's a covert thing. But if I have like a nuclear missile and I am trying to overtly assault a territory, there's no telling how big the blast radius is, how much yield that warhead is carrying, how much the potential damage and the fallout and, the radiation and the contamination and all of these things. There's no telling how big the blast radius is, the shock wave, the whole nine, everything that you get with a nuclear weapon. There's no telling how big a blast can be. You can wipe out entire cities at this point, I believe. I believe that you can wipe out entire cities with the type of technology we have today. So it would behoove the leadership to talk to the leadership on the other side. And actually, throughout human history, it's always been that way. Matter of fact, before Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese didn't believe that it could happen, but the president at the time did say clearly and distinctly, stand down or face utter annihilation. Japanese is like, oh, what they mean by utter annihilation? What, you gonna send everybody? No, we just sent 2 men on the plane and it got the job done. So, yeah. Like it would be, and it's always been that way. You see these movies in ancient times of generals that meet up when they have their armies behind each other. And then I also did something, and that was on this channel, breaking down the aspects of champion warfare, where 2 chosen champions from either opposing side fight each other to spare the lives of thousands. So the generals from either side of the army would meet up and talk terms, agreements, and see if they could resolve it, if there was any final solution to resolve it. And there wasn't. There was no way to resolve it, so they went to war. But at least they had the talk and they did the diplomatic thing before they just, they did the civilized thing before we took it to primitive means. And that's what Ice Cube is speaking to here. Enemies meet, they sit down, they talk, they try to hash it out. You need this, I need that. You want to take this from my land. I don't think that's going to happen, but here we can do this trade. We can set up these routes. We can have these transactional means. Since your people need this and we have it, why don't you give us something that we want, and so that we can provide you with that which you want. Trade, diplomacy, all of that stops so many wars from taking place. Because otherwise, we'd just be taking from each other on a constant basis, and that would just be the lay of the land, is to just take what you want by any means, and just take and take and take, and bloodshed and war and slaughter. So this is what Ice Cube's mentality is throughout this whole process. But let's continue.
So we just got to talk. That's the only way we're going to work this out. I know when the talking stops, the fighting starts. A lot of people, they, think I'm a, Republican. I'm a right-winger. Just because I was willing to speak to the Trump administration, and I was willing to speak with the Biden administration as well,
Have you?
One guy in the administration, but it didn't go anywhere. It was basically a, take my temperature kind of call. We'll get to it, but they never got to it or never planned to. Matter of fact, the guy left the administration, so after talking to him for a year or so, he was gone, and then we were left really with no one to continue the conversations.
What do you think of Biden?
I don't think he's given the people who put him in exactly what they thought they were going to get from him.
But his most loyal voters, according to the polls anyway, are black voters, particularly black women. And those numbers don't seem to change. So no matter what happens or doesn't happen. So do you expect they ever will change?
Whether they become independents and not vote for anybody who's not bringing it. It's like people want your vote. They have to do something to earn it. If they don't earn it, why are you going down there and pulling that lever?
Because the other side hates you. That's the pitch they make. We may suck, but the other side hates you.
You're supposed to dance with the person you brought.
Yeah.
You know? And the person that brought you to the dance, you guys are supposed to dance together. And if that doesn't happen, you got to go find another dancing partner before the night is up and the music stops.
What do you think of Kamala Harris?
I mean, obviously she's a great politician to be able to become the vice president of the country. I don't know how effective she is at her job.
What's your view of the police at this point?
It's the same, you know. They, it really is, you know. It's like looking at, like, what's your view of the military? Like, they're the military. They're always gonna be the military. If I asked you this in 1946, you'd be like, they're the military.
Yeah.
So it's a fraternity, it's an organization that does things a certain way. And I think their philosophy sometimes is detrimental to the people they're serving, because I think cops have a win and make it home philosophy. Win whatever battles you have in the street, make it home at night. And that's actually the most important thing. And everything else, people's rights, doing things the right way, you know, being totally fair and square all the time and not, you know, being a little aggressive, you know, all that comes second to win the encounter, make it home at night.
Exactly. Nowhere on the badge does it say, and that was well articulated, because nowhere on the badge does it say win the encounter and make it home that night. The badge says protect and serve. Your badges say protect and serve. If you are afraid to do the job, then you shouldn't do the job. My girl, she's deathly afraid of being struck by lightning. Childhood stuff, she saw like a tree get down, lightning strike when she was a kid right in front of her. And as such, she didn't elect to become an electrician. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're afraid to do the job, then you shouldn't do the job. It's that simple. If you're afraid of getting shot, stabbed, all of these things, if you're afraid of death, then maybe you aren't the person to be put in a position in which you're going to interact with that all the time. Just a thought. And it's well put by Ice Cube.
And you can't really fault somebody for thinking that way as a police officer, but that's the philosophy. So,
and see, this is why just a little bit pushback right here, just a little bit of pushback right here, because I can fault somebody I can fault someone as a police officer because that is their title, that is the position that they elected to uphold. So I can fault them as a police officer. Can't fault you as a human being for feeling that way. Because most people don't want to die. If we had our way, we would live forever. That's true. But, and still, you elected to become an officer of the law and protect and serve the community in which you serve. So, if you're afraid to do the job, maybe you shouldn't have the position. It's that simple. It's really that simple.
Everything else comes second to that. So.
And being a police officer is you putting your community before yourself. So that shouldn't come second.
Guy might not care if he violated your rights. He's gonna win this encounter. He's gonna make it home tonight. And that's all that matters. And sometimes I think that's what we see is an organization hell-bent on winning and not a fraternity or organization hell bent on upholding the law and doing everything right or by the book, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just the nature of that fraternity.
Maybe of organizations.
Yeah, you know, it's they come with a philosophy, and you know, you can try to buck it if you want to, but more than likely they're gonna get you out the way and stay in formation.
And I was just talking to somebody about this exact thing the other day. So at the job, at my manual labor job, I call it the gym because essentially I'm getting paid to work out. But at the job, you know what I'm saying? We're under a union, and the union has stewards. This guy wanted to know if I would be willing to be a part of the position, because a lot of people are looking at him to be, and he ain't really trying to gravitate towards it. And so we were talking, and we eventually got to this part of the conversation. I was like, look, you know, there are two ways to really be. You could be of the people in that position, particularly. You could be of the position. You could be of the people, or you could be rank and file. And you can't really half step in either way. You can't really play both sides in that particular position. So if you are going to be of the people, just know that everybody who's rank and file, you won't get rank and file privileges. Like certain people that are rank and file and, you know what I'm saying, do what they're told to do in every instance, and, you know what I'm saying, look after the union more so than the union members. If you are the opposite, those people are going to advance and get special privileges and certain things and opportunities that you won't get, because they already had their orders and structures set up. And certain situations, because human beings are very nuanced, certain situations you're going to find yourself in where it's going to be morally wrong for you to leave people hanging, but it's going to be by the book of the union to do so. So you have a choice to make, and you need to make it before you step into the position. You need to decide right then and there if you're going to be rank and file, or if you're going to be of the people. And that's why I told him I'm not stepping in that position, because I'm already in too many positions of leadership. So it's a lot to mentally juggle. But let's continue.
Do you think that it's harder to be a man in America now than it was when you were a kid?
Yes. Saying what you feel, being yourself, is what they call toxic. You know, we shouldn't be called toxic for our instincts and for, you know, I was born this way. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, Why can't we be ourselves? We were born this way too.
So there are some groups, like if I say I'm trans, then people say, that's great, you were born that way, we affirm you. But if you say I'm just a dude with male instincts, you're not affirmed, you're attacked.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is exactly what's going on today, and this is exactly why I was originally going to make this about the Just, like today's show was going to be about Just Hilarious and I think it's Cherry the Boom. It was about that whole exchange, because the one thing of note that Just said is, who is going to protect us? Well, a part of protection is foresight and the ability to see things down the road and not have you be in those situations in the first place. Protection isn't in the moment when we get there. Protection is okay, I already see what type of environment that is. I don't want us to be in that. And as such, we're not going to do that. Just like I said on the last episode with Carlisha, Carlisha and her son. If the father was in that situation, he would have likely advised her not to go that late at night. It was like 11, it was close to midnight. She's out with a 14-year-old boy. Nothing good happens at those hours at those locations. So if you wanted food, y'all could have, you know what I'm saying, ordered in something if the father was in there, or the father would have said, hey, I am going to go out and get it because I don't want my loved ones in that type of environment. I'm a man, I'll handle it. But this is what we're seeing more and more of, is that the more and more we downplay masculine men, or men who speak up, who have a voice, who have a difference of opinion, than what is, quote unquote, the norm out here. We see more women in these situations, in these predicaments in which they are unsafe. And what I was going to break down in the whole Just Hilarious situation with Cherry, Cherry the Transformer. What I was going to break down in that situation is how women, especially Black women, have championed femininity, being an independent woman. They don't need no man, this, that, and the third. And then they keep finding themselves in situations where they're asking for protection. If you don't need no man, it's up to you to protect you. You are your first line of defense. You are your only line of defense. Why do you want to be protected if you couldn't be corrected? It's very simple. If I can't correct you, I can't protect you, because my protection was advising you to move in a different manner that wouldn't have you in such situations in the first place. And that's what people don't get. But let's keep going on this interview.
I mean, everybody doesn't really have to affirm you. You know, if I wake up and say, you know, I feel like a pigeon, and I want everybody to treat me like a pigeon. Some people may say, whatever, Q, we treat you like a pigeon. But some people may choose to be like, dude, no. That's your world.
Yeah.
I'm not part of it. And I have to be ready for that.
Absolutely.
It's a big world out here. Everybody doesn't have to adhere to me.
That's called narcissism, right?
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, seems like you're trying to bend the universe to your will, and it don't work like that.
We've been talking almost all day now. You haven't mentioned race a single time. We've mentioned economics, rich and poor, a number of times. Do you think that we overplay the role of racial conflict in American life?
Yes, I think race, it takes up too much space. There's people that we all have in our lives who are same race that we can't stand. And there's people in our lives from other races that we get along with way better. So it's not about race. It's not about color and gender and this and that.
Absolutely.
It's about who do you connect with? You know, who do you vibrate with? You know what I mean? Who's on the same wavelength? Who wants to be the same kind of person? Who wants to do the right thing when you want to do the right thing? That's who you connect with. So I think a lot of people make a lot of money off of the racists fighting against each other and bickering. And they the ones who push it in our face all the time that we're separate. And
does feel like there's more of that, doesn't there?
yeah, it seems like it's a it's like you're stuck in a bad movie and you can't get out. Like, you can't find the exit, and it continues to play on the screen, and you're just running around looking for the exit, and this bad movie continues to just haunt you day by day by day by day. You know, that's what we're caught in. A never-ending, winless battle of, you know, of race and color, and we're worried about, you know, where you from, and, you know, hip hop. What's great about hip hop, like, it was a saying in hip hop, early hip hop. I think Rakim coined this phrase. You know, it ain't where you from, it's where you at. You know, and it's so true. It's not about where you come from. It's about where you at right now.
I'm not imagining that this.
Notice what he said. It's not where you come from. Not talking about location, but talking about mentality. Listen, no, peep the gesture. Peep the gestures. Because body language communicates more than your mouth ever will. Peep the gestures.
It's so true. It's not about where you come from. It's about where you at right now.
Where you're at, where your mind is, because that shapes your environment. That determines how successful you'll be. That determines whether or not you can communicate effectively, as Ice Cube is communicating right here, very effectively. That controls everything around you. Everything that you need in order to be successful takes place right here. There's a saying, whether you say you can or whether you say the person who says that they can and the person who says that they can't, both of them are absolutely right. Doesn't matter on the time scale, doesn't matter how long it's going to take you to get there, doesn't matter on that. If you think that you can, you will. If you think that you can't, you won't. It's very simple.
I'm not imagining that this stuff is being pushed on us, right?
No.
Much more than in, say, 1986.
Yes, I think so. Because in 1986, you had movies and television, and it was all scripted, and we knew this is a scripted show. But I think now you have so many so-called reality shows that basically push the same thing, but in a reality-like setting. So, you know, you'll watch a movie on race, okay? And you flip the channel now, you're watching a somewhat like documentary reality show that's highlighting and magnifying race and status and where you belong in this country and where you don't. And, you know, we're highlighting the bad guys here. We're highlighting the good guys, you know. It's always really showing controversy and pitting each other against each other. And with the reality shows, you know, controversy sells. So they're not showing people getting along. What they want to get to is the fight, the conflict, you know, the argument, the throwing of the bottles, the, you know, the turmoil, the differences.
Absolutely.
And, you know.
Does that bear any resemblance to your actual life as someone who lives in this country? Like, do you have racial conflict in your life day to day?
Probably, you know, most of them are unseen. You know, I'm not going to say I encounter racism. People know who I am. Police know who I am. Everybody knows who I am. So I probably get a pass on a lot of things that friends, family members, people I associate with, people I love go through all the time because they're not Ice Cube. But, you know, I've had an insurance company drop me because they didn't like my point of view. You know, things like that.
Are you mad about it? Are you mad at people for their skin color ever in the course of a day?
I'm not mad at people because of their skin color. You know, I'm mad at people because of what they do and the things they choose not to do.
Right.
There's a big problem in this country with the financial banking system and black people and our access to capital. You know, I know that when it breaks down, we have, 13 to 15% of the country trying to live off of half a percentage of wealth, 0.05% of wealth. So that's an issue. That's a problem. We have to have access to capital so we can do cool things for South Central. If we drove past one of those lots and a guy that lived there wanted to put a store up, he just couldn't get a loan because of his zip code. Now, guys from outside the area, they can come in and they can get a loan and put that store up. And that has to change.
How do people live in this state who aren't making a lot of money?
I mean, things are so expensive. Houses that used to cost, like my father, I think he bought his house 47 grand, maybe. And now it's worth 650.
The house you grew up in?
The house I grew up in. It's worth $650,000.
And that's in South Central?
South Central.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Huh. Jesus.
So the middle class has shrunk in this state?
Without a doubt, or left. They definitely shrunk, and we have a lot of people leaving the state.
And 50 Cent actually warned about this on his IG, that Biden was going to increase taxes so much in the state of California, and taxes have been going up in the state of California so much that people that didn't outright own their homes, they had no choice but to move, because the taxation on their money, the income tax from the state, as well as the property taxes, got so high that nobody can live there. They have a huge homeless problem in California. They have entire blocks, entire city streets filled to the brim with homeless camps, encampments, makeshift cardboard housing, the whole nine. That most people just left to avoid being financially destitute and being homeless. It's kind of what has to happen. Let's continue. We're almost done. We're about to wrap this up.
Because they just can't afford it.
If you were running the state, wouldn't that be a big concern for you?
Yeah, I think it's a major problem, because you not only have people leaving, you have industries leaving,
Right.
Tesla, they just put up a plant in Texas, so
and Hollywood trying to go to
left
Texas.
California, and many big companies have left California.
I've noticed something weird. I've never been a big hip hop fan, but I've met a bunch of hip hop performers.
Yeah.
And they're all pretty open-minded, way more open-minded than, say, your average college professor. I wouldn't have expected that. Why do you think that is?
College professors, they all want their jobs. And if their staff or administration is saying, hey, we think this way at this college, sometimes they understand what that is and they stick to those guidelines. Rappers, we're free spirits for the most part. Some of us who are not locked down to these crazy contracts, but we know doing things the way they were done in the past hasn't really gotten us as far along as a people as we have wanted. So we tend to break the mold. We tend to be disruptors. We tend to not wait for an invitation to the party. We tend to either come in through the window, you know what I mean, or kick the front door down. But we're coming to the party. So that's how we've actually been able to gain success, because everybody wants you to be in your little hole. Everybody wants you to stay in your lane and all that stupid stuff. And as soon as I hear that, I'm out of my lane.
Absolutely.
Immediately.
But you should stay in your lane, don't you think?
No.
No. If I would have stayed in my lane, I wouldn't be here. I would still be in South Central Los Angeles, you know, not following my dreams.
So you're not surprised that rappers tend to be more open-minded at all?
Not at all. Not at all. Because they want to go for it. They want new experiences. They want to carve their own path. And, you know, they're not going to conform. They're not going to conform because that gets you nowhere.
Okay, so that's the end of that. That's the end of that. Let me go. Let's go back. That is the end of the interview. The rest of that is Tucker Carlson doing what Tucker Carlson does and telling you about he uses what we came for, and on the back end shows us something that we might have not known about. But for the purposes of this podcast, that doesn't matter. So this was a very insightful interview into the mind of Ice Cube and how he thinks, and I agree with him on pretty much everything that he said. I agree with. You know, musicians are more open-minded to more things than the average person. Just because they meet so many people and they have to interact with so many people. Tend to be more open-minded, tend to be more independent, tend to not go along with the crowd. I mean, that's why we love rock stars. We love a rock star for being a rock star. They're untamable. You can't really get them to do exactly what you want them to do, so you pretty much have to do business with them in order for them to get on your wave. You just can't tell them to make them believe something. You don't have to show them something. So, because you know, as musicians, we always question. Whether it be authority or the person right next to us, like, I don't really know what you want, so you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna watch how you operate to see what it's really about. But I believe that this was a great interview for Ice Cube. He likely gained more than he lost. I'm sure he lost a lot of simple-minded individuals that can't think more than 5 minutes in front of their face. So he lost them. But I'm sure every time Ice Cube articulates himself and he's not, you know, being the angry gangster rapper on the track that I personally love him for, but every time he articulates himself in these such spaces on these platforms, I think he has a lot more to gain than he does to lose. So with that said, that brings this episode to its conclusion. Let me know what you think down in the comment section, as this is always a discussion. So I would definitely like to hear from you. Wary observations, righteous discussions, unite people. It's the Word Up Podcast. I am your host, OMNI, ETC, Omni, etc. And I'm out.